Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on March 10th, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the Reardon Room D, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut, to hear the commission-initiated amendment to the Town of Bethel zoning regulations. Amend Section 4.4 Moratorium. To subject the following uses to a moratorium: medical marijuana dispensary and production facility and expansion of existing dispensary facility. Amend Article 2 definitions to include definitions for medical marijuana dispensary facility and marijuana production facility in conformance with state definitions, Section 21A, 408, 14, and 20. At this public hearing, interested persons will be heard. Written communication will be received. A copy of the proposed regulation is available for perusal at the Land Use Office at the Town Clerk's Office, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut, dated this 27th day of February 2015 at Bethel, Connecticut. Pat Risch, Chairman. We also have a response from HEPCO. Do you want me to read it?
No.
Okay.
You can just date it.
Dated, mailed 2/25/15.
Okay, and both documents are on file in the Planning and Zoning Office.
Yes. The commission had asked to draft language for a proposed moratorium for uses for medical marijuana in Bethel, as we didn't have any specific regulations that actually spoke to it directly. So I put together language that encompasses 4 different uses, or four different uses: medical marijuana dispensary facilities, medical marijuana production facilities, expansion of existing dispensary facilities, and new retail recreational marijuana facilities. In order to do this, moratoriums actually have to be adopted as regulations in the zoning regulations. Definitions were required for these uses, and that is under Article 2, the definition section you'll see on the last page, which are, these are really in accordance with the state statutes with regards to these types of uses, except for recreational, retail recreational marijuana establishment, because that is not allowed by state statute at this point, but we were anticipating potential language that may come, so we wanted to try to get ahead of that. This was brought to our attention, asked by the public. The commission responded, and this is the result of our work to have this moratorium. The only thing that is left blank on here is setting an effective date and an expiration date. So this is an amendment to the regulations. It will stay in there. We'll have a section for moratoriums, but that moratorium will sunset at a certain time. The first page of this outlines the reasons, which I think provides enough justification for granting the amendment to the regulations and the moratorium.
Thank you. If anyone sitting here was interested in a copy of what Steve was just referring to, we do have some extra copies up here, so feel free to help yourself. All right, as this is a public hearing, we will now move out to the public for any comments or questions. I need you to come forward, put your name and address on record.
Sure. My name is Mike Moore. I live at 19 Gorilla Road. I was one of the appellants to the ZBA for the medical marijuana dispensary. Obviously, I'm for the moratorium. From what I understand, the commission is leaning that way towards agreeing to the moratorium as well. So I'm not going to belabor a lot of the points that I did at the ZBA meeting. I just want to first ask the commission some questions as far as making sure that I'm understanding the moratorium correctly as far as what's going to happen in this 1 year. My understanding, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is that the current medical marijuana dispensary will not be permitted to sell recreational marijuana if, within that time, the state of Connecticut legalizes it. So I want to make sure that the current medical marijuana dispensary cannot now open its doors to the general public and sell recreational sales. I want to make sure that this moratorium covers that. That's my first question.
If you want to ask all of your questions, and
Sure.
then we'll respond to all
Okay.
of them.
Thank you. No expansion of the current dispensary, I think that's pretty obvious. They're not gonna, make it into, much, they're not gonna expand the footprint of that building, I imagine is what that means. No new medical marijuana dispensary, I think that's pretty obvious in the language, that there's not gonna be another application accepted. I think I understand that's what's gonna occur with that. And there'll be no additional farms. No farms, grow farms sponsored by the state to open up in Bethel. So those are the main questions I have towards the moratorium, as far as making sure I understand it correctly, is what it's gonna do. And as a corollary to that, one of my neighbors had asked me to ask this question: if the current dispensary, for whatever reason, the current owners, I should say, something happened in which they weren't able to run the business anymore, would somebody be able to come in and take over that business in a kind of a grandfathered-in situation? Would that business be having to shut down if they couldn't operate it anymore during this moratorium period? So I think those are the main questions I have. And then my final question is, well, during this moratorium, I believe the commission is going to be drafting some zoning regulations to deal with these issues coming forward. There will be an opportunity for public input for that, I'm assuming, and as far as, because then I would obviously have some more concerns and questions, and why I'm for the moratorium, and how I feel those businesses should be zoning regulated.
Do you want to take all the questions at once, or?
Well, I'll start with the last one first.
Okay.
Is that we will be administratively creating regulations to manage the future of medical marijuana and/or recreational marijuana in the town of Bethel. When we create those regulations, we will hold a public hearing, at which time every member of the public will be, free to come and speak about the zoning regulations. And the commission has the authority to modify in any way those regulations that we, as administratively, put together for them. And I'll be speaking with the commission as we go along to develop them properly. As far as allowing a retail establishment as a part of this, if the state was to enact a regulation that allowed retail marijuana or recreational marijuana, that would not be allowed during this moratorium. As far as if this new owner failed to run this business and wanted to sell the business to another operator of it, the special permit goes with the property, not with the owner, as far as local Bethel zoning is concerned. As far as the state statutes are concerned, that's another story, because they have to be licensed by the state. So they would have to meet the criteria as outlined by the state to become a licensed operator there. So, yes, it can continue in that location if these owners sell the business, yes. I think that was it. Was there another question?
Can I just ask a follow-up to one of your regarding
Sure.
the zoning regulations?
Sure.
You said you're going to present them to the public after you guys administratively create them, and then the commission will, I guess, based upon the public input, would have the opportunity to revise them or make some changes?
Well, they would have to suggest changes, and the commission would listen.
Or to adopt them or not to, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
He did also ask about the current dispensary, about expansion of the current.
Just the footprint of the
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah, it can't be expanded.
It can't be expanded.
That's subject to a
Yeah,
moratorium.
he
We knew
answered
that, but
Yeah.
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure,
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward with comments, questions? Sharon, put your name and address on record, please. Just talk,
just
just
for the
talk,
record.
just talk.
My name is Phil Lombino. I was also one of the appellants with Mike. Listen, I just want to echo what Mike said. I feel like it's a slippery slope, even the fact that it's there as a dispensary right now. I don't want to see it going further. Obviously recreational, there's been a lot of chatter about things going through in the state senate. Who knows if it'll make it through, I don't know. The lawyer said he won't allow for it, or it's not on his agenda, but it can happen quickly. I think a lot of promises were made from the dispensary's point of view, especially for security. They talked about having a security guard. They ended up having their husband. They were supposed to have security inside the building, called a man trap. It's more or less supposed to keep people from getting inside the building. They didn't do that. You know, they were supposed to also have things by appointment only. They've actually changed that.
Sure, but I
It's
think it's
walk-ins.
important that we keep on point of what
No, I'm sorry, I
this
just
public
wanted-
hearing is for.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I feel like it's just a slippery slope, that if we allow, you know, there were a lot of promises made this time, and if we were to allow anything to go further, I think things just kind of fall to the wayside, and all promises that were made kind of fall away.
So this
my main con-
is a public hearing on moratorium.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying,
on
so.
preventing until we could
No,
investigate.
exactly, so that's what I'm saying, that I'm 100% in favor of this moratorium, because I just feel like it's a slippery slope if we don't put one in now and fully investigate. Because obviously we missed the boat the first time around, just don't want to see us miss it the second time, and because obviously it'll be on a much grander scale if things move forward as they're supposed to.
And I think this is why the
Yeah.
commission initiated this process.
Yeah,
so.
no, and that's great, sorry for the whole preamble, I just wanted to say, just the feeling being, you know, very close to it, so. Again, I'm all for it, and I hope that we do move forward with the moratorium and move forward properly, as it should have been done first. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to come forward with any questions or comments? All right, hearing, yes.
Well,
I do need you to come up here and put your name and
Yeah,
address
of
on
course.
record, please.
I got here a little late, so I don't know what I've missed, I don't know exactly what stage we're at, but I didn't want to miss an opportunity to just say the
You may
word.
take a copy
That's
of
the
the
Oh, okay.
proposed, yep.
Thank you.
We just
Um,
need your name and address.
Yeah, I was just gonna give you that. It's Dave Carter on Maple Row. And I would just like to express, you know, my strong support for town imposing a moratorium on medical marijuana use. So, not to mention any, you know, for potential down the road recreational use. Concerns or reasons for that, I would just say that, you know, I've lived in the town for about 25 years, and I really think it would be detrimental if Bethel added yet another dispensary anywhere within its town boundary. You know, Danbury has come out very much outspoken in opposition to it, and you know, my concern stems from you know, property values, concern about, you know, in effect, the area in general becoming less appealing to prospective new residents. I moved here, like I said, 25 years ago, and one of the things that appealed to me at that time, and for the most part still does, is, you know, the hometown atmosphere and the, you know, just a sense of living in a safe neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood of the new dispensary, and you know, we feel a little bit uneasy. I'm not going to say any more about that other than point out, I don't know if it's been brought up yet tonight, but we have had a few instances of vandalism in cars since the dispensary's opened. Whether there's any connection to the dispensary, you know, we'll probably never know, but we never had these types of things occur until the dispensary opened up. So, thank you.
Then hearing none, we're going to move to commissioners. Sandy, if I may start with you.
Lou.
I'm sorry. Oh, Lou, I'm sorry. Oh, Lou,
Well, he's sitting
I
in-
apologize.
Steve seats. I didn't recognize.
No, I have absolutely no questions. I completely support a moratorium.
Thank
And I think we should adopt it.
Sandy.
I support the moratorium to give us time to do what Phil and Dino says is move forward properly, as it should have been done beforehand.
I totally agree with the other commissioners.
John.
Obviously, I am in support of this. Steve, it's only for 1 year, right?
Correct.
And we
That's,
can't just keep doing these
no,
until we have it, so
it
we have
has
1
to
year
be-
to do it,
Yep.
right? So what
It
would
has
be
to
your,
be a reasonable amount of time,
Right.
which I think 1 year is a reasonable amount of time.
so it should be adopted immediately, or the month of April, so that we get 1 year?
No, we can say as of
As of-
tomorrow's date.
I have no questions, I'm in
James.
full support.
Don.
I'll support the moratorium for the purpose of evaluating the state's position and the federal government's position should any other applications come up.
Thank you. And I also support this, but I also do want to make a comment that I checked with the police department, and there have been no records of any incidents out there since the dispensary opened. There are no records of any issues out there.
You're gonna close the public hearing?
Yeah,
Yep.
I have to close the public hearing because the public had an opportunity to speak. So if everyone agrees,
Yep.
this public hearing is
But they
closed.
did.
Yeah, they did speak.
Hand
Not, they think it's related to the dispensary, but the police have no record that it is.
There was actually a police record, I'm sorry, of somebody being pulled over in our neighborhood for smoking weed, and they had a medical marijuana prescription. Just to throw it out there that there was an incident.
So is this public hearing
This
closed?
public hearing is closed.
Great.
Next.
Reasons. The Commission acknowledges the adoption by the state on August 28, 2013, the final regulations concerning the palliative use of marijuana, codified in Section 21A-408-1 to 21A-408-70 in the regulations of the state agencies for the Department of Consumer Protection. As printed from the DCP website, the regulations include 76 pages of regulations for the very tightly controlled administration of the state's medical marijuana program, including requirements for those who seek licenses for the growing and dispensing of medical marijuana. The Commission further recognizes an existing medical marijuana dispensary located at 16 Stony Hill Road, aka Fort Gorilla Road, in the town of Bethel, owned and operated by Compassionate Care of Connecticut, LLC, which was granted a zoning permit on May 13, 2014, issued a certificate of zoning compliance for occupancy on September 2, 2014, and which is now open for business as a permitted use in the Route 6 business zone. In order for the Zoning Commission of the Town of Bethel to properly evaluate these state regulations and to consider the adoption of zoning regulations for local control of these uses, with a goal toward maintaining and protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the community, a moratorium on the acceptance of any application for expanding existing facilities or for new facilities for dispensing or growing of medical marijuana or a retail recreational establishment is proposed. The state has issued 4 licenses within the state for growers and 6 licenses issued for dispensaries in the initial stages of the program. In addition, the DCP regulations require that the agency, when issuing licenses, consider whether the proximity of the proposed dispensary facility will have a detrimental effect upon any place used primarily for religious worship, public or private school, convent, charitable institution, whether supported by private or public funds, hospital or veterans home, or any camp or military establishment. Section 21A-408-14. Clearly, the complexity of the DCP regulations and controls adopted to carefully regulate this use at the state level supports the premise that the use should also be carefully regulated at the local level. The proposed moratorium is therefore justified. The effective date of the moratorium on the application or installation or creation of any medical marijuana dispensary, production facility, or retail recreational marijuana establishment is the date of adoption of this regulation by the Zoning Commission together with the filing of the amendment with the town clerk beginning on March 11, 2015, expiring in 1 calendar year, ending on March 10, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Done.
And we'll now move out to public comments. Is there anyone that would like to comment?
Anything?
Anything? Yes,
Excuse me. Yes, Diane Tomato,
Diane, I need you up here, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Diane Tomato, 7 Maple Road. I just have a question on the moratorium, assuming it's passed. And what happens at the end of the year, on March 11th of 2016?
Steve, we're gonna revisit that at the end
Well,
of one.
hopefully.
No, we're already
No,
gonna-
no,
There's not gonna be
no,
regulations
no,
that will
the
be
end of one
adopted.
year.
No, I'm sorry.
By then the regs will
And-
be done.
I
By then the
missed
regs
it.
will be done.
There will,
Should keep it
At the end of the moratorium, we will have regulations adopted that are, I guess, acceptable to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the public to manage the future of marijuana facilities in Bethel.
So these regulations will be voted on by the public before they're,
No, they'll be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
okay, so,
But there'll be an,
With
there'll be a
public
hearing.
input.
With public input.
Yes.
with input.
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Since it was brought up specifically, I have a copy of a police report in Bethel. In October of last year, Officer Brian and Diana stopped the vehicle, followed a vehicle from Route 6 and turned left down Gorella Road past the dispensary based upon the suspicion of marijuana smell coming from the vehicle. Long and short of it is I have a couple of copies of the report. As he approached the car, the first thing the person put in his face was a medical marijuana card. After his investigation, continued his investigation, they had thrown the marijuana cigarette out of the vehicle. After he found it, it was still warm, it was still wet on one end. Although they wouldn't admit to the driver wouldn't admit to smoking it. He smelled the smell coming out of the car. He smelled the smell when he approached the car. And that happened about 100 feet from my house.
Well, let me clarify for you. When I went to the police department, I asked if there were
Thank
any
you.
Thank you.
police reports related to the dispensary itself, and there were none.
That's correct.
This
There
is
hasn't been
just-
any.
And
I looked-
I'm gonna
Yeah.
clarify a little
Yeah.
bit more too, because we spoke about this as well, and I spoke to the police department about it, and I saw their report, is that they noticed him while traveling from Danbury into Bethel on Route 6, and by the time they pulled him over, he had turned onto Gorella Road. So there's no indication that he was headed for the dispensary or headed for the neighborhood. He was on Route 6 and he was smoking marijuana.
He was a Brookfield resident. Anybody that knows the Stony Hill area knows that Gorella Road is a pass-through to Vale Road. If he's a Fairfield resident, that's where he gets his medical marijuana. He comes to that dispensary. Absolutely.
Whether or not he had a card is irrelevant. He was smoking marijuana
Correct.
and was arrested for it. He could have
No, he
been,
wasn't arrested.
well, he was pulled over.
Correct.
It doesn't matter whether he had a card or not. He was smoking marijuana.
Correct. But he immediately used his medical marijuana card as his get-out-of-jail-free card. And that prevented them from making the arrest because they weren't sure of how the state was going to react to the first arrest of someone with a medical marijuana card being behind the wheel.
Well, that has nothing to do with the dispensary, though. It has something to do with the medical marijuana card issued by the state of Connecticut.
Right, which is sold on Gorella Road.
No. They're sold by the state of Connecticut. The cards are sold by the state of
They're
Connecticut.
not sold to begin with.
The cards are
Registered.
distributed.
Registered
That's
with
correct.
Yeah,
the
the cards
state.
are distributed by the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
It wasn't compassionate care that got him out of jail free. It was the card that you say got him out of jail
My
free.
point is that it's just an example of the potential that we are concerned about with this type of business, that the potential misuse. That has been the only incident we've had. And I'm not trying to muddy the waters. It was brought up specifically, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, that happened within a month of that place being open.
But again, not related to our medical marijuana dispensary. And
He's a
that's-
customer of that dispensary, correct?
I don't know that.
He absolutely has to be.
I
If he
don't
lives in
know that.
Fairfield, he was a Brookfield resident, he lives in Brookfield. I know for a fact he lives in Brookfield. He's a customer of that
But
dispensary.
what I wanted to make sure is we don't put anything on record against the dispensary, that they're not responsible.
No, they didn't do
They're not
anything to do with, no,
responsible
I'm
for
not,
it.
I don't have
And
any, it's
that's,
not
and
against
that's
them, correct.
the police report I went after. Has there been anything up at the dispensary that the police had to be called
Correct.
up there? And the answer is no.
Well, that's my point. The point I'm making is not against the dispensary owners.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't tell him to go smoking in the car. They didn't tell him it's okay to. He did it on his own volition, which is against the regulations of the medical marijuana program. And my point is, this is the slippery slope that maybe Phil spoke about of people taking advantage of this program and therefore being a problem, as opposed to, I don't even know what percentage it is, the number of people that use that dispensary in the proper
3,000.
way. No, the number that use it properly. Because I can also, I'm not gonna get into the anecdotal information I have of people getting their medical marijuana cards in a very surreptitious way. I know people specifically that have gotten it. I'm not gonna get into it because it's not necessary. I just wanted to say that this has not been as clean as I was hoping it would be. It has been very good. It has been, when I drive by it every day, it hasn't been a problem there. There hasn't been anybody knocking on the door. They get deliveries of $500,000 worth of marijuana, and thankfully, no one's tried to knock them off, thankfully. And that's been great, and I've been very happy about that. And there hasn't been any, people walking down the street high as a kite. It hasn't happened either, So for all intents and purposes, it has been okay. But that is just one example of the potential for misuse for that program, not even giving the recreational, question aside. But that's what I just wanted, since it was brought up specifically about this.
Thank you.
George Gehrig, 13 Maple Row. Lived there all my life, about 60 years, one of the first houses on the street. The vandalism that I have seen, I can't prove it's related to dispensary. All I can tell you, it's never happened before. The vandalism that I saw to Mr. Watson's car was unbelievable. He had to total the car. Windows were all smashed in. The mirrors on the side were smashed. The air was let out of the tires. The police came, took fingerprints, haven't heard anything more about it. He had to donate the car because it was totaled. 2 weeks exactly later, another neighbor on the other corner, Birch Drive, had an incident with his vehicle. Nothing was stolen in the car. Glass was broken. Air was let out of the tires. At the same time, there was a character, some person with a truck, went to a neighbor's house and wanted to use the telephone or some tools, and she wouldn't let him in. He started looking around the house. Instead of calling the police, she called her husband. I don't know what happened after that. So, and another thing is a strange character walking down the street with a hatchet in his hand. Is there a law against that? Probably not, but we've seen some strange things go on that I've never seen before. Is it related to the dispensary? I can't prove it. All I can tell you is it's happened since the dispensary's there. And that was one of our fears in the very beginning. So I just want that to go on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, please.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you.